Split it. A sharp clatter of cutlery. A soft gasp. Then sudden laughter, loud, bold, almost shocking. Every head turned. The bill sat in the middle of the table like a silent bomb inside a luxury restaurant in Lagos. 5 women froze, but one of them, Eleanor Ashford, leaned back slowly, still laughing. And Alexander Whitmore, the billionaire who made every woman pay for her own food, stared at her like something had just gone terribly wrong. Because that laugh didn't sound surprised. It sounded like she had been waiting for this moment. Alexander Whitmore was a man who made all his dates pay for their food. No matter how rich he was, no matter how expensive the place, if you sat at his table, you paid. That was his rule. And in Lagos, everyone knew it. People talked about him all the time. Proud man, heartless. He just wants to embarrass women. Some women said he was testing loyalty. Others said he enjoyed watching people struggle. At high-end restaurants, waiters would whisper when he walked in. That's him. Watch what will happen when the bill comes. Some women came prepared, holding their cards tightly in their bags. Some came hoping he would change for them. None of them ever won, because Alexander never changed. He would smile, enjoy the night, then sit back quietly when the bill arrived. Watching, waiting, judging, and most times, the women would pay. But something about tonight felt different. To understand Eleanor Ashford, you have to look beyond the table, because unlike the others, she didn't dress to impress. Simple black dress. No heavy jewelry. No loud perfume. But her eyes, calm, observing, almost calculating. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't trying to please him. She was studying him, long before the bill arrived. Long before he said a word, Eleanor already knew exactly what Alexander would do. The dinner started smoothly. Soft conversations, light smiles, expensive meals arriving one after another. Alexander was relaxed, confident, in control. But then, small things began to happen. Eleanor didn't react to his jokes like the others. She didn't rush to agree with him. She didn't even look impressed. Instead, she watched everything, every word, every move, every habit, and once, just once, she glanced briefly at the bill folder before it even arrived, like she was checking something, like she was waiting for a signal. Then, it happened. The waiter walked closer, placed the bill gently on the table, and stepped away. Silence. Alexander leaned back slowly, folded his arms, and delivered his usual line. Split it. But this time, before anyone else could move, Eleanor laughed. Not shocked, not confused, but certain, like the moment she had been preparing for, had finally arrived. And as she reached calmly for her bag, Alexander felt something he had never felt before. Not control, not pride, but doubt. Because for the first time, it didn't feel like he was testing her. It felt like she was testing him, and he had already failed. Eleanor's laughter faded, but the tension stayed. Slowly, she opened her bag. Not in a hurry. Not under pressure. Calm. Too calm. The other women watched her closely now, their earlier confidence beginning to slip. One of them quietly reached for her phone. Another adjusted her posture, unsure. Alexander's eyes didn't leave Eleanor. For the first time that night, he wasn't observing. He was waiting. Eleanor brought out a card, placed it gently on the table, but she didn't push it forward. Instead, she looked straight at Alexander. "You always do this?" she asked softly. No anger. No embarrassment. Just a simple question. Alexander gave a faint smile. "I believe in fairness." A few of the women nodded quickly, almost as if they needed to agree. But Eleanor didn't nod. She tilted her head slightly. "Fairness?" she repeated. Then she glanced at the untouched wine in front of him, the extra dishes he ordered, the quiet way the others had been trying to keep up all night. And then, she did something no one expected. She withdrew her card, placed her hands on the table, and leaned forward. "If it's really fairness," she said gently, "then why do you always choose women you know will say yes?" The table went completely still. Even the soft music in the background suddenly felt too loud. Alexander's smile didn't disappear, but it weakened, because for the first time, someone had seen the game and said it out loud. Alexander let out a soft chuckle, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Careful," he said calmly. "You're starting to sound emotional." A few of the women forced small laughs, eager to stay on his side. But Eleanor didn't move, didn't smile, didn't break eye contact. "Am I?" she asked quietly. Then she leaned back, slow, controlled. "Or are you just used to people not questioning you?" The air shifted. One of the women picked up her glass, then slowly put it back down without drinking. Alexander straightened slightly. This was new. No one had ever stayed this steady. No one had ever pushed back this far. "You agreed to come," he said. "No one forced you." Eleanor nodded once. "That's true." A pause. Then, "And you agreed to host," she replied. "But you don't act like one." Silence crashed over the table. Even the waiter at a distance hesitated, sensing something was wrong. Alexander's jaw tightened just slightly. "Explain." Eleanor didn't rush. She gestured lightly to the table. "You choose the place, you order freely, you set the tone." Her eyes lifted back to his. "Then you step back and watch people struggle to match a standard you created." A heartbeat passed. Then another. No one spoke. Because suddenly, this wasn't about a bill anymore. It was about control. And for the first time in his life, Alexander felt it slipping. Right in front of everyone. Alexander exhaled slowly. Then he smiled again. But this time, it felt forced. "You're overthinking it," he said. "It's just dinner." Eleanor nodded, as if she expected that answer. "Exactly," she said softly. "It should just be dinner." Then she turned to the other women. "Did anyone here know we would be splitting everything tonight?" Silence. One woman shifted uncomfortably. Another avoided eye contact. Finally, one of them spoke, barely above a whisper. "No." That single word landed heavily on the table. Eleanor looked back at Alexander. "Then it's not fairness," she said gently. "It's a setup." A sharp pause. Alexander's fingers tapped once on the table, then stopped. He could feel it now. The shift. The room was no longer on his side. Then Eleanor did something even more unexpected. She stood up, slow, composed, picked up her bag. "I'll pay for what I ordered," she said calmly. She placed cash on the table. Exact amount. Nothing more, nothing less. Then she looked at him one last time. "But next time, try honesty. It costs less." And just as she turned to leave, a voice behind her spoke. "Wait." But it wasn't Alexander. And the tone of that voice changed everything. Eleanor stopped. Slowly, she turned. It was one of the women at the table. The quietest one. She stood up, her hands slightly shaking, but her voice clear. "I'm not paying for this." The words hung in the air. Another woman looked at her, then at Eleanor, then back at the table. I didn't even order most of this," she added. Now all eyes shifted to Alexander. For the first time that night, no one was waiting for his approval. Alexander sat still, very still. The control he always held, the silent power he enjoyed, was gone, piece by piece, right in front of him. He glanced at the table, at the untouched food, at the bill, at the women who were no longer trying to impress him. And then, slowly, he reached forward, picked up the bill. No speech, no argument, no pre-day, just a quiet decision. "I'll take it," he said. Outside, the night air in Lagos felt calmer. Eleanor stepped out of the restaurant, steady, unshaken. Behind her, footsteps approached. Alexander. Eleanor. She didn't turn immediately. When she finally did, her expression was calm. "Why did you come?" he asked. Not angry, not defensive, just searching. Eleanor studied him for a moment. Then she answered simply, "Because I heard about you." A pause. "And I wanted to see if it was true." Alexander swallowed slightly. And Eleanor gave a small, almost kind smile. It was worse. The words hit, but she didn't stop there. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Silence stretched between them. For the first time in a long time, no one was trying to win. No one was trying to impress. Inside the restaurant, the staff whispered again. But this time, it was different. Not about a man who made women pay, but about the night someone refused to play along. And from that night forward, Alexander Whitmore was still rich, still powerful, still respected. But there was one thing he never did again. He never tested people at the table, because he finally understood something simple. Respect is not proven by what people can pay. It's shown by how you treat them before the bill arrives.